Well guys, we made it. Little detour on the way up. We're here. We're going to be watching a little bit of a video. I'm not going to be recording that because that's something you're going to need to come here and see. But be careful. Watch our step. Let's go in and take a look and see what we can see. So this shows the whole area of where Ducktown is and how big of an area was actually denuded by the stuff.
Oh, look at these pictures.
Now this is what the place looked like back in the day. Yes, it actually was a desert, a red desert. And that's all because of the copper oxides or whatever coming out and making acid rain. Oh look, there's even a square dance. You can see it was really just a company town. Everything was about mining and they didn't care about all that acid eating stuff up or anything. Drilling time, quitting time, starting time, drill doctor time, scaling down time, rib time, taking up the bottom time, mucking time, and loading time. So you can definitely see, I guess that's what the copper would have looked like after some refining. Ocoee corn, Ocoee okra, Ocoee blueberries, Ocoee blackberry. Even birds wouldn't fly over this area because there was really nothing for them to eat. No plants, no bushes, no trees, no flowers, nothing. Black copper. And we're here at the Burra Burra Mine complex, so we'll get to see some of this stuff later. And this shows all the different chemicals that could come from the mining of the copper in this area. It's all pretty impressive. So all sorts of stuff independently of just the straight copper. It just had to be amazing back in the day to see how bad all of the situation had to be with the environment. Oh look, there's even some native copper uses. So you had some Cherokees that actually made stuff. The fiddle playing copper hauler. So this is the fiddle in case. Belonged to a guy named George Barnes. He was known for his fiddle playing, and he is credited with hauling the last wagon load of copper down the old copper road. Lead burner toolkit. Now, any of my train guys know, is the Bald Mountain Loop still alive? Because that became quite famous because it used to be a W switch back then. It became a great big loop. So does anybody know? And this drill is just massive. Entering the mines had to be a large chore. Plus, working and being evacuated. That is nuts. The reason it's nuts is look at the size of that. You had communications, all sorts of neat stuff. You can see from the old school way, more modern. They won all sorts of awards, and here's what their gear would look like. The change house, so you change from the outside gear into other stuff. Second level. Now they really have recreated how these guys would do stuff. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And this shows some of their old gear from the old carbide lights. Safety lanterns for oxygen checks. All sorts of interesting stuff. You could really spend a while here just looking at all the stuff. A DuPont blasting machine. 3 ohm leading line, 2 ohm DuPont BBC caps. And that's a raised drill. Huh. Well, this isn't really going to show up good, but you get an idea of the size of this place. Alright, so the small rounded items are slag from where they would have come from the blast furnaces. And we've got this piece. This is Matt recovered from the Burra Burra roast yards. So they would have cooked this. And the roast yards actually extended 14 acres. And this is where all of the acid rain and all the problem happened. And I apologize for the shadows. So they grabbed local rock to make the smelters. There's some more interesting stuff over that way. Well, this is the sinking hoist. So they would have used this to, I guess, lower people down. And they had their own firefighting gear and hydrants. And this block building has replaced a frame structure that was located a short distance away that can be seen right there, I believe. And they basically had the fire hose for the mine office and the manager's homes on the Burra Hill. And where this group of trees is standing is where a house would have been. These are sheave wheels. They sat at the top of the head frame and functioned as pulleys, so they would have been up in there. These are very impressive. I'd say they're, I don't know, 10 feet tall? They're pretty impressive, though, that's for sure. That is some big gear. And this is a giant compressor. This would compress the air so they could run a lot of things. Good Lord. I guess that was the electrical part that would drive both of these giant compressors. And there it is, Ingersoll Rand.
Did they really need one that big? I mean, you think that with the technology back then, they wouldn't have needed one this big? But,
you know, this place is absolutely nowadays with all the green, it's amazingly beautiful. But can you imagine having that house and seeing this kind of view? This kind of view is absolutely amazing. And even more amazing is this view. We're looking from the top of the property, the Burra Burra Mine, and we're looking over towards North Carolina. Now this below is where the Great Collapse happened, and it does not look like it on camera, but that is 100 feet or more deep. And while the trees have grown up around it, it's a pretty big scar. Just to give you a little bit of an idea, that red color, imagine no green, just that red color for all as far as you could see, all in this area. Basically where the darker green is has been replanted, so you can see that this was a pretty massive area. So see this, even though this is black and white, this shows you what it would have looked like. You know what? I think that is sage advice. Tanks for the beautiful view. So bucket from a power shovel. Basically it would tilt up and scrape. Giant iron ore buckets. You can see the other parts of the building. While we can't get into them, we'll be looking at them later. They would fill this up with molten copper. And this, well, you can't really see because the light's shining the wrong direction. It's a pretty big, about 4 people can fit in this ladle. Pretty impressive. And this was a drag or winch that was powered by compressed air. So the museum itself is actually, at least in part, the old mine office. So this is what it looks like when it's not processed. This is what they were digging out of the ground. You had some iron ore in it, you had some copper, you had a bunch of stuff. So while part of the building doesn't exist anymore, part of it does. So this was the Burra Burra Mine site. Now, you can tell because if you look carefully and see that part of the building, you can see that that is still there. So it's interesting to find these little bits and pieces that are still around. And oh, I bet that red one is one of the fireplaces. So there's the little fire building, and over here would have been the head house, change house, the head frame, all the other stuff. And then you can see where the mine office would have been. Danger, keep out. Now, I don't know if you can see, but there's some cables that are going in there. And the cables go up to that big structure over there. This is all part of the original mine, and I am betting that that pipe going down might have supplied air. It's a great big old metal trough of something. But you can see that the interesting construction in this building. Wonder where the bricks came from. Anybody in the comments below, tell me if you think the bricks came from this area. They look awful yellow for coming from an area with so much red. So this replaced an earlier building that was here. I guess this was where the repair shop was. You got a little bit of power and stuff too. Well, in the old days, going from the old ways to the new ways. So this would have been the newer power, I guess. Well, that's the inside of the maintenance shop, at least from one front door. You got a door. And then there's a door within a door. Well, this is interesting. There's a mini set of railroad tracks. I have no idea. They're going through the fence, and you've got this big crane over here that we'll probably see in a minute. I wonder what the tracks were for. I'm gonna go look over this way though. Leftovers of a bygone era. I am betting that these are drills, or at least parts of the drills. So they would have stored all the drill bits and extensions in these racks. And this rack goes back 20 feet maybe. So that is too cool. Well, we've come up against a fence, but you can see an interesting little shed over here. A whole bunch more gear. A lot of copper ore. Guess they hadn't had a chance to bust it apart yet. And oh look, I wonder if that is a whistle to signal end of shift or not. Okay, so this would explain it then. This is where the head frame and the shaft entrance was. So this would have been probably an anchor point for all of that, and this would have been where everything was. We're gonna go take a closer look at this stuff. So the big heavy stuff would have been lifted up from the railroad tracks down there and lifted up here for the shop. So you've got all sorts of gear associated with this. We'll go take a closer look. So this is pretty interesting that all this old gear is still just left here and still pretty good and under tension. Just look at all this neat old equipment just laying around. And this was all to go to this crane. I'm guessing that was where the crane operator operated his things. There seems to be more levers. So this is when they first started using welding in the place. This is a pretty cool place. This is a pretty cool place. I really wish that I could get in here. All in all, this is a pretty cool old building. See, and there's just more stuff just peeking and hiding everywhere. Although here is a pretty cool old door and a pretty cool statement. No open lights. I'm guessing that meant, oh, that's cool. Huh. Well, that's an interesting piece of tech. I'm at a loss. Does anybody know? Please leave a comment down below. I'd be interested to know what that is.
Outside of the door.
Well, this is the change house, but I don't know where that big cold breeze is coming on, but I see a hole in the door, so let's take a little peek. Okay, this is very impressive. This is another building to poke into. It's just full of interesting gear. Good Lord, look at that. That's some big chain. That's some big chain. It looks like some tensioners. And just to give you a size comparison on what this chain is, yeah, my hand's not that big. I better spring to it and see what else I can find in this area. You know what? I don't know how far back that goes. It goes further than I can see. So maybe it's a central tunnel system? I don't know. Well, that's it for the upper part. Let's go take a look at the lower part. That is interesting. Was that a walkway to go across where railroad tracks would have been? I can't really claim, but I think this says Bit House. So this might be where the bits were stored before they would have gone with the miners and gone down into the room. So that's pretty neat. There's definitely some interesting stuff in here. That's neat. Well, I was right. So this was used to store extra bits for the drill heads. There was the mine office. Ah. I can see why this building's off by itself. This is where they stored the blasting powder and the dynamite. So these foundations are what had the big ore bins, and they would have been 40 feet up above this. I think that's definitely interesting. Shovel, a diesel mine locomotive, a compressed air power engine, an ore car, and a second power shovel. I was right. Off to that side where that thing is was the railroad bed, so the railroad would have come through here. They would have dumped into those, from those, and it would have come in this area. Something tells me this gear is a little worse for wear. Bit of a warning, folks, if you do come here. This is really, really wet ground when it's been raining. Very interesting. So you could have walked from the employee parking lot to the upper level of the mine site without having to cross the railroad tracks. Now you can see the tracks coming right up underneath and right off to the side. So that makes a lot of sense. This is the boiler house. So everything would have run off of steam. And then when they went to electrical power, coincidentally generated by TVA over at Ocoee, then they moved the steam somewhere else. So just like the old school days, you could use a winch stuff up higher after backing up, and then get it in the building. Now, I see windows. Can I? Yes, I can. Now, I'm thinking that they're using this big old place for weddings and whatnot, and I think that they plan on renovating for the future to even do the same stuff even more. So this was the Hoist House. So you had the compressor throwing in air into the mine, and then the hoist would run from here up to the mine and lower the guys down. Impressive. Most impressive. Well, just in case you do the walking tour, signs. Everywhere there are signs. Right down at the foot of this hill is where they had their ball field. Everybody loved the baseball. Well, I guess the doctor was moving up in the world, because he went from the corner of one building to he got his own clinic. Well, the houses across the way were originally constructed as workers' homes for the hourly employees. And most employees didn't live in the company housing. They never owned more than about 400 houses. Still, it's pretty neat that they would offer houses. Well, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed our little trip over to Ducktown and Copper Hill for the interesting Burra Burra Mine experience. So I'm off to go on some more journeys. Until then, why don't you go on some journeys of your own? We'll see you next time.